The camera turns on and there she is. Sally Field is 79 years old. Her silver hair shines under the lights. Her eyes still twinkle with the fun energy that made everyone love her years ago. The person asking questions leans in. He has a pen ready. He asks a question that surprises everyone. Sally, after all your years in Hollywood, after all the famous men and love stories, is there anyone you wish you had dated? Anyone you missed out on? Sally doesn't wait to answer. She doesn't get shy or try to joke about it like other stars might. Instead, she thinks about the question seriously. Then she gives an answer that shocks everyone in show business. There were 7 men, she says softly, 7 actors who didn't just win her heart in movies. They were all she could think about long after the film was over. 7 men she would have followed anywhere, done anything for, given up everything for, if they had just said the word. The interviewer's eyes get big. The crew behind the cameras moves closer. This isn't the nice, sweet Sally Field they thought they knew. This isn't the woman who played moms and nuns and America's favorite girl for 50 years. This is something new. This is pure honesty from a woman who isn't afraid to tell her whole story. What makes Sally's secret so exciting isn't just the famous names she will say. It's how she says it. She feels no shame, no sadness. She doesn't try to make it sound nicer for people watching on TV. At 79, Sally Field has reached a special point in life. Telling the truth is more important than what people think. Feeling desire, even desire from long ago, should be said out loud without being sorry. She explains it in a simple way. These weren't just small crushes or quick attractions. These were the men who made her heart beat fast when they read the script together. The ones who changed the feeling on the movie set just by being there. The actors who made her forget what she was supposed to say. Not because she didn't know her lines, but because she was paying attention to a much stronger, more basic feeling. Hollywood has always been about chemistry. It's about that electric feeling between a famous man and a famous woman that the audience can feel through the screen. But what happens when that chemistry is even hotter than what the camera shows? What happens when 2 actors are fighting against an attraction so strong it could ruin the whole movie? Sally Field knows what happens because she lived it. 7 different times with 7 different men. Each one left a special mark on her that people never knew about. The first name she says is smooth and powerful. Paul Newman, with his amazing blue eyes that could make you stop everything, and that smile that made women all over America feel weak. Working with Paul on the movie Absence of Malice wasn't just acting, Sally says. It was a test of her willpower that almost made her give in. Many times, Paul had a way of looking at you during a scene that made you forget a whole crew was watching. He could lean over a table while acting and make it feel like the most private moment of your life. Sally remembers one day when they were filming a scene in a restaurant. The script wasn't romantic, it was just 2 people talking. But the way Paul said his words, the way his voice became a low, rough whisper, the way his fingers tapped the table near her hand, she had to use all her strength not to reach out and touch him. She laughs now, remembering how she would go to her trailer after very strong scenes. She would have to sit quietly for 20 minutes just to make her heart beat normally again. Paul Newman didn't just act with you, she explains. He took over all your attention. He made you believe that every word he said was only for you. Every look was full of what could be. Every moment together felt like it was about to turn into something that would change your life. The connection between them was so strong that the director had to film several scenes again. Sally kept missing her cues. She was too busy watching Paul, too lost in the way he moved, the way he thought before speaking, the way he could make quiet moments feel exciting. There were times she was sure he felt it too. Times when his professional face would soften a little. She could see something real and wanting in his famous blue eyes. But Paul Newman was a good man. He was married and dedicated to his work and his family. He never did anything that would hurt their jobs or personal lives. That self-control, Sally admits now, only made him more attractive. There is nothing more dangerous than a man who could have you completely but chooses to keep perfect, frustrating control. The second name has a totally different feeling, Burt Reynolds, where Paul was quiet strength and held back power. Burt was pure charm with a grin that didn't care about rules. Working with him on Smokey and the Bandit was like trying to act across from a hurricane. Burt didn't just enter a room, he took it over. He owned it. He made everyone else feel like they were just background characters in his life story. Sally talks about the magnetic pull she felt toward him from their very first scene. Burt had a way of making everything feel like fun, like the whole world was a game made for him. He could say a line that was totally innocent on paper and make it sound like the most tempting offer ever. His laugh spread to everyone. His confidence was like a drug, and the way he was completely unapologetic for being himself made Sally want to get closer, not move away. There were days on the Smokey set when Sally made up reasons to stay late. She hoped for a few more minutes talking with Burt after work was done. He had a habit of leaning in doorways when he talked, with one shoulder against the wood. Sally says she could watch him just stand there for hours and not be bored. What made Burt especially dangerous was that you never knew what he would do. You never knew if he would say his next line from the script or make up something that would totally surprise you. Sally remembers one scene where he was supposed to just hand her something, but instead, he gently held her wrist for a second longer than needed. He looked at her with so much intensity that she forgot they were being filmed. The director loved it and kept it in the movie, but Sally knew the truth. In that moment, Burt wasn't acting, and neither was she. They were two people caught in an electric feeling that had nothing to do with the script and everything to do with pure, undeniable attraction. The third name sends a different kind of shiver through the room. Robert Redford. Golden hair, sharp eyes, and a presence that could make time feel like it was slowing down. Sally never acted right beside Redford in his most famous years. But she saw him at movie events, award shows, and those fancy Hollywood parties where careers are made over drinks and quiet talks. She describes watching him from across crowded rooms. She was mesmerized by how he moved through parties with such easy style. Redford had a way of making people near him feel more interesting just by being close. He would listen when you talked, really listen. He made you feel like your words were the most important thing he'd heard all night. Sally remembers one meeting at a Golden Globes after party in the early 80s. She was near the bar when Redford came over. He said he liked her recent movie and then asked what she thought about a story he was thinking of directing. The talk lasted maybe 10 minutes, but Sally says she felt it for weeks after. There was something about his voice, that careful rhythm, the way he seemed to pick each word on purpose. It made even simple chat feel full of meaning. What stayed with her the most was his smile. Not the big smile for cameras, but the small, private one that appeared during real moments of connection. It was quiet, almost a secret, like he was sharing something special that only you could see. Sally admits she spent too many nights wondering what it would be like to get that smile in a more private situation. The fourth secret brings a totally new feeling to her voice. Al Pacino. He was pure intensity with passion that was just barely held in. Sally worked with Pacino for a short time. They read lines for a movie that was never made, but those few hours left a permanent mark on her memory. Pacino didn't just read his lines, he lived them. Every word came from somewhere deep and powerful, like he was tapping into forces regular people don't have. Sally describes sitting across from him at a long table, watching him change normal conversation into something that felt risky and full of life. His eyes would get narrow when he concentrated. His hands moved like they were shaping meaning out of air. His voice could go from a soft whisper to a loud boom without any warning. During a break, Pacino came to her with questions about her character's feelings. The talk was only about work, but Sally felt overwhelmed by his attention. When Al Pacino focused on you, she explains, it felt like a bright light was on you, showing parts of yourself you didn't know were there. He had a way of leaning in when he listened, making a private bubble even in a room full of people. Sally laughs when she admits she went home that night and called her agent right away. She really hoped the movie would happen just so she could work with Pacino again. The film never got made, but the memory of his intensity, his total focus on every moment, stayed with her for years. The fifth name comes with clear emotion. Kevin Costner. Tough, dependable, with that special voice that could make a shopping list sound like a love song. Sally worked with Costner when he was becoming very famous. Hollywood was starting to see his special kind of American manliness. She says he was surprisingly modest, even as he got more famous. Costner had a way of making everyone on the movie set feel important, from the biggest stars to the people who brought the food. But there was something else too, a quiet confidence that pulled Sally in like a magnet. He acted like a man who knew exactly who he was and didn't need to show off for anyone. Sally remembers long talks between filming. They discussed everything from sports to big ideas to the difficulty of staying real in a business that is often fake. Costner was a thoughtful listener. He asked real questions and seemed truly interested in the answers. That mix of good looks and smart thinking was impossible for Sally to resist. What made Kevin especially interesting was how normal he was. In a town full of big egos and worries, he seemed truly happy with himself. Sally admits she watched him during breaks. She was fascinated by how easily he talked with the crew, how he wasn't showy, and how he could switch from serious acting to normal chat without trouble. One evening, filming went very late, and almost everyone had gone home. Sally and Kevin found themselves alone where the food was, drinking coffee and talking about their kids and their dreams for movies that were different from usual Hollywood stories. The talk went on for hours. Sally says she felt closer to him in that simple moment than to many men she had actually gone on dates with. The sixth secret makes her smile. The smile is both sad and playful. Harrison Ford, the movie star who didn't really want to be one. The man who seemed almost bothered by his own amazing good looks. Sally never acted right beside Ford, but they saw each other often when he was most famous as Indiana Jones and Han Solo. She says she was fascinated by his mixed signals. Here was a man who could control the movie screen completely. He could make millions believe he could save the world with just his cleverness and will. But he seemed truly uncomfortable with being famous. That reluctance, Sally explains, just made him more good-looking. Ford had a way of avoiding attention even while he was the center of it. He would come to movie events looking like he wanted to be somewhere else. This somehow made everyone in the room want to be the person who could make him happy. Sally admits she felt the same way. She felt pulled to his rough outside, curious about what was underneath all that careful space between him and others. She remembers one time at a charity event where they sat at the same table. Ford looked mostly miserable from all the forced talking for most of the night. But when he did talk, his dry humor and surprising thoughts showed a deeper side that his public image never showed. Sally says she was completely won over by his unwillingness to make small talk. The way he seemed to be fighting against his own natural charm. What stayed with her the most was a quick moment near the end of the night when Ford walked her to her car. The conversation was normal, nothing special, but something about how he stood there in the parking lot, with his hands in his pockets, looking everywhere but right at her, seemed very sweet to Sally. Here was Han Solo, reduced to awkward chit-chat. That vulnerability made him much more attractive than any smooth, talking famous man could be. The seventh and last name hangs in the air like the quiet before a thunderstorm. Sean Connery, the original James Bond, the Scottish accent that could make asking for eggs sound like a romance. The man who changed what it meant to be a man for a whole generation. Sally's voice gets very soft when she says his name, like saying it too loud might weaken the memory. She never acted with Connery directly, but their meetings at different Hollywood parties left marks that time could not remove. Sally describes the first time she met him at a dinner for directors in the mid-70s. She was young then, still learning her place in a business run by powerful men, but Connery treated her with a respect that felt both safe and dangerously close. He had a way of making every woman feel like she was the only person there. Not with obvious compliments or planned charm, but with his full attention. When Sean Connery listened to you speak, Sally explains, he gave you a focus that made you understand why he could control a screen just by standing there. His eyes would get a little narrow, his famous mouth would form a small smile, and suddenly you felt like you were sharing government secrets, not just having a normal chat. Sally remembers dancing with him one time at a party after a movie opening. The song was slow, something romantic and not very memorable, but the way Connery held her, strong but polite, sure of himself but not pushy, made her feel more wanted than in any fake movie love scene. He smelled like costly perfume and something else, something very manly that made her want to move closer, not keep a polite distance. What she thought about most with Sean Connery was his voice. That accent could change the most ordinary sentences into something that sounded like a beautiful poem. Sally admits she would sometimes find herself thinking about their conversations again, not for what they talked about, but just for the pleasure of remembering how her name sounded when he said it. The way he said Sally made it sound like a gentle touch, like he was tasting each sound before letting it go. There was something timeless about Connery that was bigger than his time of being famous. While other actors seemed stuck in a certain decade or style, he carried himself with an authority that felt ancient and forever. Sally describes feeling almost scared by his presence, not because he was mean, but because he represented something basic about manly power that most men could only act like they had. The interviewer sits back, thinking about the importance of these secrets. 7 Hollywood legends, 7 different kinds of attraction, 7 paths not taken that Sally Field kept in her heart for years. The confession hangs in the studio air like a strong smell, heavy with the scent of possibilities that never quite became real. What makes Sally's admission so interesting isn't just how famous the men are. It's how honestly she talks about the pull of wants that were never fulfilled. These weren't relationships that turned bad or secret loves that ended painfully. These were attractions that lived in the space between being professional and wanting something more. They were kept alive by imagination and fed by the electric connection that happens when truly magnetic people are near each other but never quite meet. Sally explains that Hollywood back then was different. The movie studio system created a special environment where strong work relationships could easily become something more personal, without anyone saying it out loud. You spent 12-hour days with these men, creating close moments on camera, sharing the vulnerable work of becoming characters together. The line between acting and real life wasn't just blurry, it was almost not there at all. She describes the pain and the excitement of working so closely with men who made her heart beat fast. Every scene was a test of her self-control. Every conversation was like a dance around things left unsaid. The professional setting was the perfect excuse for long looks, for touches that lasted a moment too long, for the kind of charged silence that could make a simple script reading feel like the beginning of something more. What Sally finds most amazing, looking back, is how these attractions changed her as both an actress and a woman. Each of these men taught her something new about desire, about the different ways a person can be magnetic. Paul Newman showed her the power of holding back, and how not doing something could create more excitement than any big action. Burt Reynolds showed her the thrilling effect of total confidence, and how a man who truly liked himself could make everyone around him feel more excited to be alive. Robert Redford showed her the appeal of mystery, and how a man who kept his deepest thoughts to himself could make you want to be the one person he would tell. Al Pacino showed her the raw power of intensity and how giving your all to a moment could make normal times feel special. Kevin Costner taught her to like being grounded, and the appeal of a man who knew himself so well he didn't need anything from other people. As Sally finishes saying her seventh and last secret, she leans back in her chair. She has a happy smile, like a woman who has finally said truths she kept quiet for too long. These weren't just Hollywood crushes or quick daydreams. These were the men who taught her that desire doesn't get weaker as you get older, it just becomes something richer and more honest. At 79, Sally Field has given us the rarest gift in Hollywood: complete, honest truth about the heart's most hidden wants.